There's a hidden battle that can either hinder you or delay your breakthrough. And if you are ignorant, it can keep you frustrated and blaming God. But once you are aware of it and know how to respond effectively, it can be the key to your next level. So let's talk about it. In a video I made earlier, I talked about the biggest mistake Christians make in spiritual warfare, and that is believing spiritual warfare is about them. The truth is, spiritual warfare is not about you. Spiritual warfare is an ongoing cosmic battle between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of Satan. So that means you are not at the center of it. Satan is ultimately fighting against God, against God's kingdom, against God's purpose, and against God's plan. However, there are times where this cosmic battle can affect you personally or can have a direct impact in your life. So here, I'm going to talk about how spiritual warfare becomes personal, the main strategy that the devil uses to fight against believers in these situations, and how you can ultimately overcome. The confrontation between Michael the archangel and the prince of Persia mentioned in the book of Daniel chapter 10 gives us glimpse into spiritual warfare occurring behind the scenes of earthly events. Daniel was a prophet in exile in Babylon, and he had a troubling vision about the future of his people. So he began praying and fasting to gain clarity and understanding. And in response, a messenger was sent to him. What happened afterwards is very, very instructive in understanding spiritual warfare. In Daniel chapter 10, verse 12 to 14, it says, "Then he said to me, 'Do not fear, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, and behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to my help, for I had been left alone there with the kings of Persia. Now I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days. For the vision refers to many days yet to come.'" Now I want you to pay attention to the fact that Daniel's prayer was focused on understanding the vision that he had, particularly as it regards to Israel's future. And then the prince of Persia, who is a very high-ranking demonic force, and we're going to talk about him more later, a high-ranking demonic force who had control over the territory of Persia or the kingdom of Persia, hindered Daniel from gaining that revelation. So the spiritual warfare became personal to Daniel because it involved God's plan for his people. Spiritual warfare becomes personal when it involves God's plan, when God is about to reveal something to you, or when God is about to move in your life, or your life is a threat to the kingdom of darkness. That is when spiritual warfare becomes personal to you. So the warfare here was not about Daniel as a person, but it was about the revelation that was given to him and the role Daniel was going to play in God's timeline for Israel. So the enemy doesn't attack you because of who you are. The enemy attacks you because of what you carry or the assignment that God has given to you. Now, one of the primary strategies of the devil in spiritual warfare is to block revelation. That is to prevent divine insight from getting to people. Because divine insight gives you a clear picture of how things are. It lets you see the true nature of things. And once you receive a clear picture and you see into the true nature of things, that is how God's people advance. That's how you make progress. And the devil is very aware of this. So if the devil is going to fight you, one of the primary strategies he has is to prevent divine insight from getting to you. The spiritual warfare in the book of Daniel that we have just seen, it's about the revelation that was coming. So the nature of the warfare was to prevent Daniel from gaining revelation about what Israel ought to do. So when the devil is attacking you, it means that God is about to reveal something to you, or God is about to give you certain clarity and insight that can be the key to your next level. In 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32, the Bible spoke about the sons of Issachar. And see what it says here. "Of the sons of Issachar, who had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, their chiefs were 200, and all their brethren were at their command." What this is telling us is that the sons of Issachar were in leadership positions because they had understanding of times, but not just understanding, they knew what Israel ought to do. That is what I call insight. having understanding not just of a particular thing, but having knowledge of what to do about it. That is what separated the sons of Issachar. And that is what the devil primarily attacks in people. The devil wants to keep you in darkness so that you will not know what to do about a given situation. We read in Acts chapter 8 of the Ethiopian Enoch on his way to Jerusalem to go and worship. And he was reading the book of Isaiah, but he had no understanding of it. And then Philip caught up with him and asked him, "Do you understand what you are reading?" And he said he did not. And Philip explained everything to him. The moment he had understanding, he also gained clarity and insight on what to do next. Because when he saw water, he said, "This is water. Does anything prevent me from getting baptized?" So that is what understanding and insight does. You understand the true nature of things. But not only that, you also understand what you are supposed to do. And even in unbelievers, what do you see that the devil attacks most? It is the ability to see clearly. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 3 to 4, it says, "But even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing, whose minds the God of this age has blinded, who do not believe, lest the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine on them." The devil blinds their mind so that they will not perceive their current reality. They will not understand their true nature. The devil targets revelation. It targets insight so that you will not be able to see what God is doing. Because if you can see what God is doing, that gives you ability to position yourself to walk in line with what God is doing. That was what happened to Daniel. His answer was dispatched immediately. But the prince of Persia sought to stop that revelation from getting to Daniel. The devil is still using these tactics today. What does that mean for us? It helps us understand that the devil fights revelation. He fights our ability to perceive spiritual truth. Because those revelation is how God's people advance. Those revelation is what give God's people direction. Those revelation enables you to know what you ought to do. So sometimes the battle you are in is over what you are about to see. Satan tries to intercept the delivery before it gets to your heart so that you will not understand or that you will not gain insight to know what you ought to do. Another thing I want you to see here is how the devil weaponizes delay. The devil just doesn't hide truth. He weaponizes delay, doubt, and despair to stop you from seeking this insight. Imagine Daniel had been praying, but from the first day, his answer was released. However, he didn't get his answer until after 21 days. So the 20 days in between of silence could have broken Daniel's faith so that he will stop seeking. The goal of the devil is to make Daniel stop praying. However, we see that persistence is what sustained the breakthrough. The angel told Daniel, "From the first day you set your heart to understand, your words were heard." But Daniel still had to continue praying and fasting for 21 days, even though his answers were dispatched from the very first day. The delay was not because Daniel lacked faith. It happened because persistence was required to sustain the heavenly momentum. And this can help us clear a big misunderstanding in spiritual warfare that when there is a delay, it means God says no. Sometimes delays could be as a result of demonic resistance. Discernment is required to understand if the delay is as a result of demonic resistance or if the delay is as a result of a response from God. The final thing I want to talk about here is that the prince of Persia withstood the messenger for 21 days. So we saw that this battle was going on in the heavenly realms. And it ties perfectly into what the New Testament spoke about spiritual warfare. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, it says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places." This battle in the book of Daniel was happening in the heavenly places. And the prince of Persia is a strong demonic entity that has hold and control over the Persian empire. So sometimes even kingdoms, cities, countries can open the gates for demonic influences. And once this demonic influence becomes strong, they can rule over the territory of a particular place. Once these demonic forces gain control over a particular territory, they bear influence over what happens in those territory or in those cities. But even though the battle was cosmic in nature, I want you to see how the prayer on earth affected a battle that was going on in heavenly places. Human prayer and fasting can influence ongoing heavenly conflicts. That is what we see in the book of Daniel. The answers to his prayers were already dispatched, but there was a spiritual engagement in heavenly places that was stopping the answers from getting to him. But through Daniel's prayer and fasting, God sent an angelic reinforcement to ensure spiritual breakthrough so that Daniel could get what he was praying for. And that's why in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 18, one of our primary weapons of warfare is prayer. It says, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, being watchful to this end with all perseverance and supplication for all the saints. What are the things that we can take away from this? Number one is always seek insight. Pray that God will grant you insights into what you're dealing with. There's a difference between having an understanding of something and having an insight of what is actually going on behind the scene. If you have an insight to see things from the heavenly perspective, it enables you to position yourself in line with what God is doing. So seek insight. Secondly, don't be discouraged when you encounter delays. Sometimes the devil can weaponize those delays to weaken your faith so that you quit. And that's why perseverance is very important. You need to persevere in the Spirit. You need to persevere until you get your response. And finally, continue in prayer. If Daniel had stopped praying, perhaps an angelic reinforcement would not have been sent. So continue in prayer, because we see that prayer on earth can affect heavenly realities. Prayer on earth can shift even cosmic battles going on in heavenly places. I hope this helps you, but I want you to remember, no matter what the devil is doing or what the devil does, we always have the victory in our Lord Jesus Christ. Let that be an encouragement to you that in the end, the victory is ours. I'd like to hear your own thoughts on this in the comments, and I'll see you in the comment section. God bless you.